Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Ecclesiasticus, the 9th chapter. Be not jealous over the wife of thy bosom, and teach her not an evil lesson against thyself. Now, when it says don't be jealous, it means like don't take it overboard to where every 2 seconds you're accusing her of doing something, and basically being overly insecure. It says here, and teach her not an evil lesson against thyself, right? So in other words, don't let insecurity ruin your marriage, right, between you and your wife. And don't teaching her an evil lesson, don't treat her, right, in a way that teaches her to turn against you or to become spiteful or to resent you. Verse 2, give not thy soul unto a woman to set her foot upon thy substance, right? Don't simp, right? Don't succumb to a woman for her to gain a power over your substance, because the scriptures say by the means, in Proverbs, it says by the means of a whorish woman, a man is reduced or brought to a piece of bread. You're going to lose everything. She's going to suck you dry, and then, bounce. Verse 3, meet not with an harlot, lest thou fall into her snares, right? Harlot also going into an adulterous woman, lest you be caught with her trap, right? Because she'll seduce you, and now you're in a big trouble. Because the scriptures say, he that committeth adultery lacketh understanding, and also he that committeth adultery sinneth against his own soul. Verse 4, use not much the company of a woman that is a singer. Now, in the ancient world, when it came to singers, it's not just like a woman that's, you go to a concert and she's singing, but usually these were like court entertainers, or like banquet performers. So the setting would be associated with like, if it's like a feast or something like that, or even sometimes linked with definitely highly seductive, and sometimes prostitution. Sometimes prostitution, right? So the caution here, as it says, lest thou be taken with her attempts. The caution here is, you got to watch out with the company, right? Watch out for those environments like that can stimulate your desire, because eventually, you'll be taken with her attempts, right? You'll be overcome or ensnared with her seductive gestures. And that constant exposure, right, to situations like that, being around women like that, eventually lowers your resistance, and then you give in. So you want to be careful of that. Gaze not on a maid, that thou fall not by those things that are precious in her, right? It doesn't mean you can't look at a beautiful woman, but don't get overly messed up, because a woman is beautiful, a young woman, a maid. She looks good because, as it says, lest thou fall not by those things that are precious in her, right? Her appearance, her features. Verse 6, give not thy soul unto harlots, that thou lose not thine inheritance, because before you know it, your whole money, you're gone, right? Your money's gone. I'm trying to remember an account here. Let me see here. If we go to the prodigal son, I don't know if it's actually worded that way in here. Okay, probably not. Let's find it on here. All right, so Luke 15, and we'll start at 11. Just want to see if this is what I'm thinking it is. Yeah, okay, so this is what I was thinking, but not in detail, right? So Luke 15, when it deals with the son, right? I'm going to read just up to verse 13 to make the point, right? Luke 15 and 11, it says, and he said, a certain man had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, give me the portion of goods that falleth unto me. And he divided unto them his inheritance, or his living. And not many days after, the young son gathered all together and took his journey into a far country, and there wasted his substance with riotous living. So a part of that riotous living, is basically living it up, right, in wherever it is that he went to in that country. Okay, and an example of that is also, dealing with harlots. Okay, so before you know it, you're going to lose your money, right? They're gonna spend your money. You're gonna take them out, and before you know it, you ain't got no money in your pockets, and you don't got them either. And now they're on to the next one. So you want to be careful. Verse 7, look not round about thee in the streets of the city, neither wander thou in the solitary places thereof. And the street, basically, like if you're out and you're doing something, focus on that, right? Don't be, going around. That's that we outside spirit, because there can be danger out there if you're just idly outside. And as it says, neither wander thou in the solitary places thereof. It's here. It is. It's late. It's dark out, and you going in a area that's the street light doesn't work. And there's nobody really around to help. If something happens, what do you think is going to happen to you? Right. Verse 8, it says, turn away thine eye from a beautiful woman, and look not upon another's beauty. See, so when you see a beautiful woman, you got to be careful. All right. Especially as it says, if it's another's beauty, if it's another person's wife. For many have been deceived by the beauty of a woman, because they use that, right? They use that to seduce you. They use that to slip past your mental defenses, to weaken your resistance, and then get you to do whatever it is they're trying to get you to give into. So be careful. For herewith love is kindled as a fire. And you know what a fire does. A fire can burn through and cause a lot of major damage. Right? It's like it's if you're not careful, it'll get out of control. Sit not at all with another man's wife, nor sit down with her in thine arms. So don't be in her company, and spend not thy money with her at the wine, lest thine heart incline unto her, right? Lest you start having desire unto her, and so through thy desire thou fall into destruction, right? You end up giving in, to your desires, which if you weren't around her, you wouldn't have incurred those desires, but you give into those desires, and then you end up, doing something you're going to regret, right? Or committing adultery, and now you're sinning against your own soul. Forsake not an old friend, for the new is not comparable to him, right? It says a new friend is as new wine. Somebody that's new isn't tried. You haven't proved them like an old friend. An old friend, right? You know, okay, I know how this person is, and I can trust them. Somebody that's new, there's that thrill of a new person, the newness of it, but eventually, you might see a side of them that you're like, oh shit, like now the newness has wore off, and it's like, I don't think I like this person. I don't think, this person is actually a good friend. So don't forsake an old friend for somebody new. A new friend is like new wine. When it is old, thou shalt drink it with pleasure. See, when you've been through things with them, that's when, that bond is really stronger. Envy not the glory of a sinner, for thou knowest not what shall be his end. Right? And when you go and read Psalm 73, it goes into that. Okay, and Asaph said it. Let's go real quick to Psalm 73. Just getting the point, because he mentioned what their end will be. Right? Yeah, there you go. So he says here, he didn't understand, right, until verse 17, Psalm 73 and 17, until I went into the sanctuary of God, then understood I their end, which are the ungodly. Surely thou didst set them in slippery places. That's what their end is going to be. They're going to fall. Thou castest them down into destruction. See that? So going back to Sirach 9 and 11, envy not the glory of a sinner, for thou knowest not what shall be his end. So they may look like they're living it up, they're having a good time, but destruction is what's coming for them. Delight not in the thing that the ungodly have pleasure in. See, the things that the ungodly do for fun and they get into, don't get into it with them. But remember, they shall not go unpunished onto their grave, because the Lord is going is going to recompense their actions, and you don't want to suffer that. Keep thee far from the man that hath power to kill, so shalt thou not doubt the fear of death. Yeah, if you stay away from somebody that has the power to kill you, you don't have to worry about the fear of your life. And if thou come unto him, make no fault, lest he take away thy life presently. See, be very careful, how you answer and operate around somebody that has the means to kill you, because they can do it. Remember that thou goest in the midst of snares. See, one wrong move, as it says, that thou walkest upon the battlements of the city, which the battlements of the city are like the top edges of the city walls. So basically, in other words, One wrong move could cost you your life. So be very careful. Ideally, you stay away from people like that. Verse 14, as near as thou canst, guess at thy neighbor and consult with the wise. Let's read that in the GNTD for verse 15. Slakia, 14. It says here, get to know the people around you as well as you can, and take advice only from those who are qualified to give it. All right, that's consult with the wise. Let thy talk be with the wise, and thy communication in the law of the Most High. And let just men eat and drink with thee, right? Keep company with men that are just of good report. And let thy glorying be in the fear of the Lord, see, rather than the things that the ungodly have pleasure in. For the hand of the artificer, the work shall be commended, right? The artificer is commended for his work. And the wise ruler of the people for his speech, right? For his speech and his wisdom, the ruler is commended. Verse 18, a man of an ill tongue is dangerous in his city, and he that is rash in his tongue shall be hated. Right? Reading that in the GNTD, it says, someone who speaks rashly and recklessly is feared and hated by everyone in town. And that brings us to the end of the book of Ecclesiasticus, the 9th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rechak Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.